KAVL, we gave you that information at 2 o'clock in London time on the 3rd. In other words, 3 or 4 or 5 hours before the buy trade even happened, we told you about the buy trade possibilities in this stock. So when you saw that short seller coming in here, when the price breaks that short seller, that's your buy trigger at 17.30 right there. 78 cents a share. 78 cents a share rallied to $1.35. Now guess what, guys? That's just a little smidge under 100% return on your money on KAVL last night into the close. Just under 100% return on your money, on top of 100% return on your money on Snap today from the cash open. That's 200% return on your cash in 2 days. 2 days. So this is the idea behind these processes, isn't it? So when we think about it, we start to recognize that it's about the use of this information, and how it's used allows you to make really interesting conclusions about how to trade these elements. It's about recognizing that if people are really bullish the market, they'll talk it down. People are really bearish the market, they'll talk it up to get short. The idea of that this never happens is obviously in the interests of the people, the parties. To think that greed has been replaced after the history of mankind and womankind, predominantly mankind, to be absolutely fair to our fairer race, men are predominantly driven by greed. Greed for money, greed for power, greed. It's driven people for their entire existence, and to think that that's been replaced by some sort of a goodwill to all men type attitude is just obviously bunkum. And therefore we know that greed is the main driving force. Therefore the manipulation of price action is also here for good. It's not going to change, and therefore the idea that these things don't happen is obviously for the fantasists rather than for the real traders. These backshop stitch-ups are all over the place in every walk of life. These backshop stitch-ups are all over the place. It doesn't take a lot of work to figure this out, does it? It doesn't take a lot of work to recognize this, because you've seen it several times in the last short while. We saw it several times. We saw it in the oil just a couple of days ago, and we saw it in Snap, and we've seen it in KAVL this morning as well. We've seen it in all of these types of things. But it's the same as anything else, guys. There's always more to the story. There's always more information that could be had, but maybe is being buried. Maybe is being buried. That's one thing you've always got to remember. What you see might not be false, but it might not be the whole story. And that's what you've got to try and remember when you're looking at stuff, when you're looking at the data that comes out of a company that says this is what's happening or that's what's happening. It might not be the whole story. There's always a little bit more that you can find out, because there's obviously column inches restrictions, but obviously you can leave out the main points if you want to leave out the main points. Anyway, it was just interesting because we had the big oil trade from a few days ago, and then we had the big Snap trade from this morning, and we had the big KAVL trade from yesterday afternoon. So it gave you three great examples of a great stock, a terrible stock being bullish, and a brilliant oil price being bearish. And it's just about recognizing those elements.